I worked part-time at a Chick-fil-A during summer break last year. It was just a seasonal job, lasting about 2 months. The location was in the suburbs of Greensboro, North Carolina, not far from my parents' house. I figured it was better to earn some extra money than just sit around at home. Most of my shifts were in the evening until close. I usually started around 4 p.m. and stayed until the restaurant shut down. Like many Chick-fil-A locations, ours had a curbside service. Customers could order through the app and wait in their cars while we brought the food out to them. That night, I don't remember the exact date, but I'm pretty sure it was a Thursday, sometime in early August. Maybe around 8:45 p.m. The sky was already getting dark. The air was hot and humid, the typical summer in North Carolina. I remember because I'd been sweating nonstop since 5. The restaurant was winding down, just a few final orders. Then one came in, a combo chicken sandwich, waffle fries, and a large sweet tea. Totally normal. I grabbed the bag and walked out to parking spot slot 4, as listed on the receipt. There was a gray minivan there, looked fairly new and clean. The windshield was a bit tinted, so I couldn't see clearly inside at first. But as I approached, the driver's window rolled down just a little. Inside was a large man, maybe in his 40s, wearing a black jacket and, oddly, sunglasses. At night. I said the name on the receipt, and he immediately responded, "Yeah, that's me." But instead of rolling the window down further, he said, "I've got a back injury. Can you place it in the back seat? The side door opens automatically." I hesitated a bit, but I noticed the front passenger seat was piled with stuff, backpacks, a jacket, some boxes. He pressed a button on the dashboard, and the sliding door on the right side opened. The middle row's left seat had been removed, leaving a clear space. He said, "Just set it next to that seat. There's a cup holder for the drink." I thought, okay, this wasn't too different from loading food into a customer's trunk. I leaned in halfway, and just as I was placing the drink down, the van suddenly moved. I was thrown forward, my knee slamming against the floor. The sliding door shut automatically. I panicked. I yelled, "Hey, what are you doing?" But the man didn't answer. He kept driving, out of the Chick-fil-A parking lot, onto the main road. I tried the door. It was locked. I reached for my phone, but before I could unlock it, he shouted from the front seat, "If you call anyone, we both die tonight." His voice was flat, emotionless, but terrifying. My hands were shaking. I didn't know if he was serious, but I wasn't about to take chances. Silently, I turned on my phone and opened the dialer. I hit 911 and quickly turned the volume all the way down. I knew I couldn't talk, but if the call went through, they might be able to track my location. I sat in the third row, trying to appear calm, but inside, I was completely panicked. The van continued down a main road, then turned toward the interstate. Probably Interstate 40, but I wasn't sure. I was too busy thinking of how to escape. About 10 minutes later, I saw a police car in the rearview mirror. It was in the left lane at first, a little ways behind us. Then, it switched lanes and pulled in behind us. Lights on. The man glanced in the mirror. His expression changed. "You called the cops?" he said. I quickly replied, "No. I didn't even get a chance to unlock my phone." He didn't say anything else, but finally started to slow down and pulled over. As soon as the van stopped on the shoulder, I yanked the door handle and jumped out, running toward the police car. "Help! He took me. I work at Chick-fil-A. Please help." The officer jumped into action. They brought me into their cruiser and began questioning the man. A few minutes later, backup arrived. Turns out the 911 call was still connected and recording audio, enough to raise suspicion and dispatch patrol units. The man was arrested that night. I later found out he had a criminal record, including past charges for assault and attempted kidnapping. I quit the next day. The Chick-fil-A manager was incredibly understanding. They even helped me write up a full statement for the police. But after that night, I couldn't bring myself to stand in that parking lot again. Every time I heard a sliding car door, I froze. I'm better now, but that night still haunts me. I'll never forget it. It only took one careless moment, one open car door, to nearly change my entire life. This happened in October last year in Flagstaff, Arizona. I've lived in this small town for most of my life. Flagstaff might seem peaceful with its mountainous backdrop and thin morning mist, but that night I learned even the quietest places can hide something terrifying. It was a Friday, and I went out for dinner with my best friend Lindsay. We'd been trying to catch up for a while since our work schedules had been hectic. So we picked a popular fast food restaurant located on the main road near downtown. The place had a modern interior, warm lighting, and was usually packed on weekends. When we arrived, the restaurant was indeed quite full. Kids were laughing, teens gathered in a corner playing on their phones, and a few older folks were busy ordering at the counter. We chose a table near a large window that overlooked the parking lot. It was getting dark, and the streetlights reflected dimly on the glass. We ordered our food and started chatting. I can't even remember exactly what we talked about, just the usual stuff. Work, office drama, and someone from the past who suddenly popped up in a DM. As we laughed, Lindsay said she was heading to the restroom. So I stayed at the table, waiting for our food and casually looking around. That's when everything changed. A man, someone I'd never seen before, suddenly sat down across from me without asking. He looked to be in his late 20s or early 30s. His dark brown hair was messy. He had a small scar under one eye, and his beard looked like it hadn't been shaved in days. He wore a faded denim jacket, and I could immediately smell a strong, unfamiliar cologne. "How's it going?" he said with a smile that felt way too casual for a stranger. I awkwardly replied, "Sorry, do I know you?" He chuckled lightly and said, "I've been watching you for a while and thought you seemed like someone fun to talk to. Can I get your number?" Right then, I felt uneasy. I've been asked for my number by strangers before, usually in parks or bars, and at least they were polite. But this guy, he sat down too fast, too comfortably, like he felt entitled to be there. I answered firmly, "Sorry, I'm not interested." He raised his eyebrows, still smiling, and then asked if I had Instagram or Snap. I told him no, and started glancing toward the restroom hallway, hoping Lindsay would come back soon. He kept trying to make small talk, asking random questions like, "Are you from here?" or "Do you come here often?" I gave short replies, trying to keep my distance. As soon as Lindsay came out of the hallway, the man turned, stood up without saying a word, and walked quickly out of the restaurant. He didn't order anything, didn't look back, just vanished. Lindsay sat down, confused. "Who was that?" I told her everything, and her expression instantly turned serious. We decided to finish our meal quickly and leave. I glanced around the restaurant, trying to spot the man again, but he was completely gone. Maybe he really did leave. Or maybe he was still watching from outside. We got into my car and started the drive home. Our houses were in the same direction, just about 15 minutes from the restaurant. We'd driven this route many times, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Until suddenly, at one intersection, Lindsay looked over and said quietly, "That gray car has been behind us this whole time." I checked the rearview mirror. An old gray sedan with dim headlights was following too closely behind. I could just make out the silhouette of someone inside, and I was almost certain it was the man who had sat at my table. I asked Lindsay, "Are you sure it's him?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah, same jacket." I started to panic. I knew I couldn't just go straight home. I didn't want the stranger knowing where I lived. So I turned onto a street that didn't lead to our houses, weaving through unfamiliar residential blocks. I pretended to look for an address. turned on my signal lights randomly, and drove slowly, hoping he'd lose track. But the car stayed right behind us, never stopping, never passing. Eventually, I pulled back onto a larger road, hoping there'd be more cars and lights. That's when something truly chilling happened. The car overtook me on the left, pulled up next to my window, and the man looked straight at me. His expression wasn't smiling. It wasn't curious. It was cold. Then he raised his middle finger, slammed the gas pedal, and sped off toward the highway. Lindsay and I sat in stunned silence. My breathing was shallow. It felt like we had just narrowly escaped something darker than just an awkward encounter. I didn't even want to think about what could have happened if I had let him follow us home. That night, after making sure we weren't being followed anymore, we got home safely. But I didn't sleep well. Even the next day, I couldn't stop thinking about his face, that expression, and the way he looked at me like I belonged to him. Since then, I've been more alert. I never sit alone in public places anymore. I always check my mirrors, even when I drive during the day. And to this day, every time I pass by that restaurant, I still feel uneasy. Because sometimes, just one stranger's stare is enough to change the sense of safety you once took for granted. This happened last summer. That morning I was playing tennis with my best friend Anton at a sports complex near the University of North Texas, UNT, in Denton, Texas. After we finished around 11 a.m., we decided to get lunch at one of the fast food chicken restaurants along University Drive, the main road full of eateries, not far from campus and downtown. The restaurant, as usual on weekends, was packed. We managed to find a table in the back, near a big window facing the parking lot. While we were eating and chatting, I started to feel something strange, a sense that I was being watched. I glanced to my right and saw a woman sitting alone at one of the corner tables near the drink machine. She had dark brown hair, was thin, wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans. She looked like she was in her early 40s. What made me uncomfortable was the way she was staring at me. Her gaze was sharp and heavy, like she was holding in anger. It didn't feel like someone who thought they recognized me. It felt like someone who already hated me. But I had never seen her before in my life. We made eye contact for a moment, and I quickly looked away. But when I glanced back a few minutes later, she was still looking in my direction. Not constantly, but enough to make my skin crawl. Anton didn't notice anything. We kept talking about movies and weekend plans. But that weird feeling wouldn't leave me alone. Eventually, we decided to head out. Since the parking lot was full when we arrived, we had parked our cars a bit farther apart. After I got in and started the engine, I saw the woman again. She was now outside, walking through the parking lot. When our eyes met again, she started walking toward my car. Curious, I rolled down the window just a little. She asked without any expression, "Can you take me home?" I replied, "Sorry, I can't." She didn't say anything after that. She just flipped me off and walked away. Her face was blank, but there was something cold in her eyes. I didn't think much after that. I drove off right away and headed to my apartment on the north side of Denton, near Loop 288, about a 10-minute drive from the restaurant. I lived in a complex called Greenwood Flats, made up of a few 2- and 3-story buildings. My unit was on the second floor, directly facing the main parking lot. My car was parked in the underground garage, which could only be accessed with a resident key card. As soon as I got into my unit, I put down my tennis racket and walked to the window. I pulled the curtain back slightly and looked outside. My heart started racing. In one of the parked cars in the open lot, I saw the woman, sitting in the driver's seat of an old black sedan. She wasn't looking at me this time. She was leaning forward, holding her phone, but I knew it was her. Her posture, her hair, everything matched. I immediately backed away from the window and turned off the living room lights. I could only hope she didn't know which unit I was in. She stayed there for about 30 minutes. She didn't get out of the car. She didn't talk to anyone. Then finally, she started her car and drove away. I still don't know how she figured out where I lived. Maybe she followed me from the restaurant and I didn't notice. Since it's a busy area, she could have easily entered the complex right behind another car without anyone noticing. One thing's for sure, I never saw her again after that. But the discomfort, the feeling of being watched and followed, still lingers. Even now, I still wonder, who was she? And more importantly, what did she really want?